going on there, citizens of the Reject Nation? We're mixing things up today in the studios. We figured since it's just going to be John and I having a discussion, this might make for an opportunity to have a little bit of dynamic contrast when cutting back and forth. Today, we're going to talk about some Deadpool and Wolverine spoilers. This is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, if it hasn't been spoiled for you, you can come back later after you watch it, or if you don't care, stick around. Just don't be a jerk and carelessly spoil it for anyone without giving them a warning. Well, we wanted to talk about today some of our favorite surprises from it, meaning most likely the cameos. That's probably what we're more than likely going to be talking about. Because on Monday, we're going to be doing a deep dive spoiler talk live stream. It's going to be early, John. I didn't give you the news. We have to because Coy has an interview later. It's going to be at 10 a.m. on Monday.
Woo!
Very
you
early
said
live
early.
stream.
I assumed much worse. So 10 a.m.'s cool.
Coy's always complicated the dang schedule. For now, we're just going to stick to a few of the main cameos that I just really want to share. I cannot stop thinking about this movie. It was such an experience. I have listened to and read some of the reviews where they're not so positive about it, and I'm just like, I don't care. It's such an experience for me. I had such a great time. There's so much to go into that is like Easter eggy, like pretty much from the very beginning of the movie, but this won't be a play-by-play, nor will any of these scenes be a recap that we want to talk about. We just want to talk about our feelings and what it was like experiencing those scenes. We're going to come from the heart on this one. John, speaking of the name John, I was say the Captain America cameo. That's what made it so brilliant. It was because, I don't know about you. Okay, so in the movie, when they go into the void, and for those who've seen it, you've seen how it played out. They go into the void, and then there's I immediately could recognize it was Chris Evans' voice. I think I turned to you and I pulled an Andrew Gordon. I was like, it's Chris Evans.
We both did a thing where it's like he showed up and I muttered Chris Evans, and then moments later you muttered to me, it's Chris Evans. And it was like we both arrived at it independently.
And it was so cool because you see like the red and blue on his shirt. I didn't know what the red was, but it looked like red and blue.
Yeah, it just looks like a really like weathered Captain America is what they're trying to suggest to you. Yeah.
And I love the mislead on that. Apparently there's a few people who were able to predict that it was going to be Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four. I didn't see it coming until he said flame on.
I just wasn't thinking about it.
I wasn't even considering it. And that was the first time in the movie theater where I just went, oh! Like I freaked out at the thought of it, man.
And that was on my wish list for sure for the movie. Like, I'm not sure they're going to do it, but if they did do it, I would be so excited. Wish list, yeah.
Oh, it was such a cathartic, rewarding moment. What was your response to it? I know I was a little more vocal than you during some of those cameo appearances. Did you see Rise of Silver Surfer, or did you only see the first one?
I don't think so. I think I've only seen clippets of each of those movies.
Oh, really?
The original Fantastic Four movies. Yeah, that's why I was jealous when you did the React video.
Makes more sense why it meant more to me then.
From what I know about his portrayal and getting to see, because, you know, Captain America, Steve Rogers, is the Boy Scout. So getting to see him play a character who is much more self-centered and much more irreverent, and also to, harken back. Like, I vividly remember the moment that Fantastic Four was out. Seeing, picture this. But everywhere, like tons and tons of trailers. And so, like as a mislead, but also as an opportunity to be like, oh my God, they did it. Like, it was very gratifying, even without as much of the direct like passion or childhood nostalgia for the character on screen.
What I love that they did with him is it felt like Chris Evans truly having fun, because it doesn't seem like Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four movies. That I guess
more like Knives Out Chris Evans.
Exactly. And I know there are some people who are upset. I've seen some of these comments come in from people who have been leaking this, because we're shooting this like before the movie's been theatrically released. There are people who've been upset of like, oh, you crapped on a legacy character. I don't feel that way, because Chris Evans was so in on the joke. They gave him such a good amount of screen time. It wasn't like how other cameos in other movies are usually treated, where they just walk across the screen or they might appear. That's one of like the disappointing parts of the Illuminati for a lot of people, myself included, when it came to Multiverse of Madness, is they were just kind of there. They didn't really do much, maybe just like a glimmer of powers or something.
They're props more than they're characters.
The fact that he got to have as much dialogue as he did, as much comedy as he did, and the fact that he got to have the post-credit scene, to me, I'm like, it seems like this is what Chris Evans wanted, and he was completely game for it. So I'm game for it.
Well, and in my headcanon, I'm like, he's been out here in the void, living in this weird Mad Max apocalypse. Like, even if he's not the same guy as before, I can only imagine he would have grown and hardened happened over time as opposed to where we last left him in those movies, a couple decades ago now.
I think what people were really upset about was how he got killed off.
Sure.
I thought it was funny and shocking. I thought it was both funny and shocking.
Agree. I don't know. I mean, it's a similar, flourish to how you murked the Illuminati in like a Multiverse of Madness, but I didn't feel the same pang of, again, like, oh, they just showed up to give you like a shocking prop death moment, but not be a character. Like, I thought his involvement, while brief, it added to some level of the stakes, because you're like, are they going to murk Chris Evans now? He seems to be at least part of their plan. And it's not like they don't replace it with anything later. Chris Evans, it's like there are multiple ways in which he could come back to the MCU, and I doubt being the Human Torch is going to be the most reliable one. So, as a send-off to that universe, and you can only imagine they'll have a new Human Torch sooner than later, like, I felt like that was appropriate, rather than having him be Steve Rogers and them doing something like wacky and gory and gross to Steve Rogers, because he might come back as Steve Rogers.
And I feel like that might have been distracting and not a good call on Marvel's end, especially right before the new Captain America movie's coming out.
Like, this isn't exactly a kills the Marvel Universe movie, but it is kind of a little bit in certain aspects with the Fox Marvel Universe, and that kind of played into that for me.
Well, it's giving a lot of endings, and some are just getting straight up killed off. Oh my God, I do want to talk about the Wolverine. We completely glossed over the Wolverine montage.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
for sure. As Short King Wolverine, the greatest moment in cinematic history. Like, it's exactly as like disturbing to look at, because you can tell they must have done some weird body double CGI trickery to make it work. Part of me in the moment was sort of like, because we'd speculated that there would be so many other actor cameos as Wolverine. They are all Hugh Jackman, but it was really fun to see Hugh, do Short King Wolverine, do like totally 80s, like big hair Wolverine, do the big X cross.
The brown and yellow going up against the Incredible Hulk. I do
Classic
wish we
suit.
got a little bit more of an actual fight between the two, but something tells me they want that more in the cards for something to do later on down the road to really give it its justice and not just have some fight scene be included in here.
It's for the Shawn Levy cut coming to DVD this
Maybe.
Christmas.
But the Henry Cavill one.
The Henry cameo.
The way they were framing it is the only one where your mind's kind of going, that's not going to be Hugh Jackman. I wonder who they're going to get in it.
Yeah.
I wonder who they're going to get.
And you're like, is it Taron Egerton? Is it Daniel Radcliffe?
I was not quick enough. I thought they were going to like superimpose some guy's face onto a buff body. So I wasn't thinking they got an actual buff guy. And then to have like the dig at Warner Brothers. What does he say? Like, the people across the street treated you bad? That was so cool to see Henry Cavill.
We'll treat you a lot better than the people down the street. Yeah, something like that, yeah. You could go one of two directions almost. You could do a bunch of cameos, or you could do this one cameo that will, like, ignite the nerd community across. It'll be like Lord of the Rings when they're lighting the torches. Just every theater will erupt in a chain of just Cavill, justice for Cavill.
And I love the choice of how they spread out the cameos throughout the film. It wasn't just like a dump, like Multiverse of Madness.
It's not just one sequence.
Like, here's all they were on it. Yeah, they literally started off with like Happy in the beginning, through the Wolverines, the Henry Cavill, and then you get
your
Evans.
like random Thor holding me moment.
Yeah, they didn't pay that off though.
I wonder if that's for the future.
Oh yeah, that's a good question for Monday's talk. But later on, you do get the walk-in moment of Elektra, which was the first one they reported on. So it was like, okay, there she is. I forgot that she was going to show up. But then it was like, oh, yeah, we heard about her. I didn't expect what came next, though.
Yeah, one I never expected, and the other one I suspected. I wasn't sure they would do it.
I know which one you're talking about in that one. They did what a lot of us thought they would do, but they did it in a way I don't think any of us really anticipated they would do it, and it was so good. But that first one of Blade coming through, trying to my wife still hasn't seen it, so I'm trying to like keep my voice down a little bit. Blade coming through. Oh, I was shocked.
I have seen those movies now.
Yeah, you just watched them too, Roxy. I was shocked when I saw that. I never thought that would ever happen, especially with like the history with Ryan Reynolds and the fact that they poke fun at that.
I love that, and it really makes me wish people roll their eyes at the whole fly on the wall, but like I would love to know what conversation they must have had to have, because Wesley Snipes seems like he's having fun in the movie. He says his iconic ice skating uphill line that he improvised for the first Blade movie. So they must have come to the table and really squashed the beef and been like, hey man, I was whack. Yes, you were. It's okay. Let's move past it now. I wonder if any of the delays with the new Blade had anything to do with it, and there's that bit where Wesley Snipes basically says there's only ever going to be one Blade.
Which is a line I was surprised they let him get away with.
I know. And again, it's one of those things that could just be in character and you could easily write your way around. But in the moment, and as of this moment, it does feel like, okay, that's a shot fired. Like, look out, you got some big shoes to fill, Mahershala Ali, if it is in fact you who makes it to being in the Blade movie eventually.
I mean, it's cool to go back to that era of like and the joke about about Daredevil dying. And then Electra's like, it's fine.
It's
sorry about having it's fine.
We used to have a Daredevil. It's fine.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
So much of the jokes you got to like follow movie news or personal life drama or something. That was one of the more interesting parts about the way they did these appearances. But what was cool about them is that we call them cameos, but they're really characters in the movie. Even Gambit, like Channing Tatum showing up, we all kind of expected that for him to show up as Gambit. But if you don't follow behind the scenes, you might be like a little bit lost as to why they cast Channing Tatum specifically to be Gambit. But even if you didn't know all that history, you're still like, it's Gambit. It's cool to see Gambit here, a comic accurate Gambit. I don't know how
with the Cajun accent.
Yes,
that's a wacky Cajun accent.
It was years of development hell for that movie. I watched like a whole 30-minute video breaking down like the whole thing. Channing Tatum, he did really prep that accent. At one point, he tried lobbying to direct it to see if that way it could get made. So he was really, really invested in doing it. What I thought was really funny about the Gambit bit was how they made fun of Channing Tatum doing an accent. Because you could understand what Gambit says as Remy. And anytime you watch like the X-Men show, you can understand everything he's saying. But the fact that it's Channing Tatum doing it, and it's kind of odd because you could tell Channing Tatum's doing an accent, sort of turns into like a 21 Jump Street bit when they're going back and forth about it.
That's the fun dual reality the thing gets to exist on, because it's the actors ribbing each other and it's the characters ribbing each other. Yeah, you get those multiple layers. And I think it's, they do so much, obviously, meta commentary, but I do appreciate it when it is just like stuff that almost feels like it could have been improvised during the scene. The Deadpools all have it, but this one feels very alive in that way because it's acknowledging what you as fans probably wanted and didn't expect you would ever see, and then like the wackier aspects of actually seeing that come to life, and the fact that you get them to team up too, Elektra, Blade, Gambit, Deadpool Wolverine, and X-23, all together, like so much fun. And two, like I have to imagine that those are kind of the pinnacle. It's like Blade, you might not expect it because the beef, so that's incredibly gratifying to fans, and it's clear. It seems like Wesley Snipes probably chilled out and is here to have some fun. And then Channing Tatum gets to kind of steal the show or shine, because it's a wish fulfillment. It's something we never got to see. It's the one out of all these characters in this stretch of the movie. And they keep making those jokes, about, people not getting to know him yet. Everyone all wants their redemption and to pay off their legacy. And he's like, or those of us who never got the chance to have a legacy.
I feel like Ryan Reynolds and Shawn Levy and the writers all paid attention to the way reception has gone down with how all these other things went. Because if you compare that to the appearance of like John Krasinski getting fan cast in Doctor Strange and not doing anything really as Mr. Fantastic other than some like generic monologue that could have been given to any of the characters in the Illuminati, and then he just gets killed off. Here you get to see Channing Tatum actually do all these fights. So when they had like the hero lineup shot, that's when I started feeling the sense of overwhelming that I talked about in the non-spoiler review. I didn't read any leaks or anything about this, so all these cameos were like, for the most part, massive surprises to me. I was laughing and having such a great time, and then I'm like getting this fan fulfillment where I'm watching all these like heroes team up and go into this like crazy epic fight scene. When it came to the point where they're going to jump through the portal, the sling ring, that's when I was like, please don't, like
the Marvel sparkly circle.
Like please don't go into the like an Avengers situation. Please don't, because I'm like, I can't take this. This will be too much for me to handle. Like it was overwhelming. It was like too much good sex or something. Like it was overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. Just stop. Let me regenerate for a second.
Yeah.
Let me take a minute and rejuvenate myself. But I think those two instances, going backward to the Wolverine montage and then the team up of the Fox Universe characters, I think that demonstrates the movie's instinct, because I feel like the Wolverine montage makes a lot of sense because all of those are Hugh Jackman, so we can just go through them real quick and have fun and be like, oh, look, it's this guy, it's this guy, it's this guy. They're not going to do much, but we can move on. And it's okay because it's Hugh Jackman. He's going to do a bunch in the movie anyway. And then with these characters, Elektra and Gambit and Blade in particular, X-23, that fight... Part of me, I was sitting there going, okay, this is another moment of truth for the movie, because they could easily undercut this and like kill them all immediately, or they could let them have a real ass fight, and that's what they did, and I appreciate that. They didn't make a joke out of them all teaming up, which I feel like a different Marvel movie could have easily done. So they seem to know when to make jokes out of the fan servicey stuff and when to just let you indulge and have fun with the badass thing you wanted to see all these years or didn't know you wanted to see all these years.
And because they killed off like a good amount of characters prior, there were actual stakes that they would get killed off.
It's like I thought they would all die much sooner than they I don't think they died, which I was surprised by. And there were moments in that fight where you're like, oh, it's looking grim, but yeah, like they really felt formidable still, and also part of the humor of the movie.
Then after that, you get the scene with all the Deadpools, so much more, the Deadpool Corps, and they do confirm in the credits that was Blake Lively, the cowboy, Matthew McConaughey, all that confirmed. But before that fight happens, I wasn't even thinking about it. I wasn't. And I've had people point it out to me, Coy in particular, like he looks like he has a mask on the back of his suit. And the movie does such a good job of framing that it never draws attention to the back of the suit that he might have a mask there. In that moment, because you've seen that shot in the trailer so many times where they're facing off, that you're just thinking it's going to be that's the final shot right there, and then they're going to go into the fight scene. You're not even considering the mask. Then when he starts to pull the mask over and make such a moment out of it, embracing the whole identity of the Wolverine as an X-Man, I was losing my shit.
That rippled throughout the theater. Yeah. Even just like the theater filled with press people, no bells and whistles, like that rippled throughout the room.
It was amazing. I was so elated. And then they go into that fight scene where it's like it looks like a comic book panel when they're both Deadpool and Wolverine. Like he literally like jumps off a wall. It's like a 2D arcade video game.
It's a side scroller, yeah.
And they go into the bus and all the blood splattering and stuff. Like and the epic pose shots that they're breaking through. It felt straight out of a comic book. I fucking loved it so much.
That's just the movie's guitar solo. Like, that's just the moment where they're just like, we're just going to give you a few minutes of like cool, creative carnage. They're all Deadpool, so what stakes we're in, before we get back to the real stakes of the movie. Yeah. And it's totally gratifying. Absolutely. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Because it might be my favorite thing in the movie.
What's your favorite thing in the movie?
I had so many feelings during the prologue when he's talking about we can't desecrate the memory of Logan, but we have to. And then they just so thoroughly desecrate the memory of Logan by digging up his adamantium skeleton and taking it apart and using it as weapons and doing a dance and making it like the most garish joke possible. And part of me was like, I wonder what James Mangold's gonna feel like watching this. And it's like, it doesn't really mess with the legacy of Logan, but I did appreciate that they just completely got the elephant in the room out of the way. They're just like, don't tell us not to do this, because we're going to go times 11 doing this. We're going to go ham on this.
I feel like I think it might be frustrating if you watch Logan and then immediately watch this.
Yeah, don't do that.
Because Logan is one of my all-time favorite comic book movies. It's definitely there as like one of my top 3. So I like revere that movie in the highest regard. But I didn't do any rewatches of any of the Deadpools or any of the X-Men going into this. I've had like plenty of distance from those films to just kind of accept this movie on its own merits. That might actually detract for the experience for some people, and that might add to the experience of some people. Because
he's still dead. He still has his story intact.
Yeah, exactly. It's
just about how you feel about Deadpool desecrating someone who he loves remains.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It doesn't matter to him. He's dead.
We know he's no longer resting there. Anyway, guys, what was your favorite moment from Deadpool and Wolverine? Do you want them to do a sequel? what else would you like to see brought to life? What disappointed you? Was it that Sabretooth fight, which to me was just an homage to X-Men Origins Wolverine when he finally pays off, I'm going to cut your goddamn head off. That's what I thought it was all an homage to. That's it for today. If you're going to be at City Walk, join us 6:30 p.m. for watching this with a real crowd and not press people with their scribbly notepads. Some of them
A
are
real crowd with 2 E's.
Some of them are genuine fans who are there, but then other people are like, I'm supposed to absorb the movie, but I'm also looking down for a good amount of the time and then looking back up. So taking myself out of the transportative process of being absorbed and then going to hear reality, then trying to get absorbed. Yeah.
I've tried to write during movies, and I never want to leave
idea.
The screen with my eyes, so I'm always just kind of blindly writing huge overlapping letters, and it's a mess.
Terrible idea.
Come join us. Come see the movie with us.
See you guys. Thanks for being here.